Okay, so today's video session is looking at corruption. It's important for me today to try and express a couple of key words associated with this. What I'd like you to know is that it's typically dishonest activity, and it's basically trying to um, fraudulently take things that don't belong to you, or gain an advantage, and often it can be based upon a position of power. So it's dishonest or fraudulent activity. Okay, so dishonest and fraudulent. I'll go underneath the activity. That's in its simplest sense. That's what it is, and it often involves power. So position of power. And we're going to discuss that a little bit more and link this back. So that's what corruption is, and I'm going to try and do this as quick as I can. So I'm going to talk about this one. FIFA. Well, FIFA is involved in the World Cup and the allocation of the World Cup, and basically the voting system. So there's a voting system associated to who's allocated the World Cup. Now, Qatar, obviously being such a hot country, you wouldn't expect it to win the World Cup. Now it has, and we'll look at why, or we might be able to discuss why later on. But basically, that in that system, FIFA were accused, and there's some money there, Sepp Blatter involved, of corrupt activities, because there was what's called bribes and kickbacks. So a kickback and bribe is getting money back on a deal. So you get a deal and you get a brown envelope with money back as a result of that deal going through. A bribe could be trying to influence someone's decisions. It could be down to players being paid in order to let goals in, goalkeepers, or not try the hardest in order to win games. So that's bribes and kickbacks explained, and that's a form, as I say, a form of corruption. And with an example. So the form and the example, right? So next one we're looking at Conte. Now Conte was cleared, was acquitted of the match fixing, because this is another type. So match fixing, right? Now I'll discuss in Italy. There's a reputation of match fixing. There's a big scandal I'm going to put on in a second to outline that. Now you don't need to know all the names of the players, but it's good to know that match fixing, and it helps explain how match fixing can happen. It was to do with the influence of the officials. So they tried to influence officials and the selection of officials. The next one that I've put on there is this one is to do with cheating. So I've used Ashley Young there. He doesn't tend to stay on his feet much, and it could be foul. The forms that it wants you to know are foul play. So the hand of God, Maradona, players that dive to win penalties and win games, and break the rules to do so, is an example of cheating through foul play. Another, it could be manipulation of equipment. So if they use illegal equipment, tamper with equipment, boxing gloves, for example, the cricket ball, or don't wear the appropriate equipment that's within the rules of the governing body in the sport. That's a form of cheating, and it's against the law. It's a type of corruption that the spec wants you to know. Okay, the fifth one, which there's no image for, let me just pick it. I'll go with this. Let's go with the grey. So the next one is looking at the finance. Okay, so we'll go with so financial rules, right? So financial rules, and that's a form of corruption. And the easiest to talk about is tax evasion, and there's a high-profile case with Messi, Ronaldo, and Mourinho. That's when you don't avoid paying tax; you actually don't pay the tax that you should pay. Avoiding when you try and get out of it through loopholes and various other countries to hide the money. Tax evasion is one of the financial rules, and FFP, financial fair play. So breaching financial fair play is another example. PSG would be my example, where they went for Neymar for 198 million, and it was a Qatari company that owned PSG, and because PSG couldn't be seen to pay them because it breaches this, the Qatari company paid Neymar the 189 million to buy himself out of the contract with Barca, and then he could then go to that club. So the club didn't have any direct relationship in payment, and there's fines associated with that, but it was deemed not really enough when the club's already really well off. So they're the key ones that I want you to know. Money laundering's another, but I think I'll discuss that one when it comes to sports businesses. So now, all I'd like you to do, I'm going to click on, and I'm just going to show you a quick clip about a short video about this.
The mere mention of
Calciopoli is probably the biggest scandal in football in terms of match fixing and associated fraud. It wasn't actually categorised as match fixing, but it was a form of fraud and corruption.
Stirs a variety of emotions in Italian football fans. Commonly referred to as a match-fixing scandal, it implicated a number of high-profile teams, including Juventus, AC Milan, Fiorentina, and Lazio, among others. The scandal first came to light as a consequence of investigations of prosecutors on the Italian football agency GEA World. Investigations were already being conducted regarding claims of doping by Juve's team doctor in the 90s, when police unearthed a series of phone conversations between top executives and referee designators in Serie A. Despite being described as a match-fixing scandal, the actual allegation relates to Juventus sporting director Luciano Moggi attempting to influence results by picking certain referees he considered more favourable to Juventus, or more likely to err in favour of Juve on a dubious call. Transcripts of recorded telephone conversations published in Italian newspapers suggested that during the 04-05 season, Moggi and Antonio Giraudo had conversations with several officials of Italian football to influence referee appointments. During the scandal, it was claimed Gazzetta dello Sport sales spiked by 50,000 copies a day, with Italian sports journalist Giancarlo Galavotti claiming that even the old women going to the market in the morning want to read about this. It's astonishing. On the 4th of July 2006, the Italian Football Federation's prosecutor, Stefano Palazzi, called for all four clubs at the centre of the scandal to be thrown out of Serie A.
Right, so in this example, you've got obviously sales of a newspaper going up because it's a massively corruption sells papers. It's got a lot of media interest, but it has a negative impact on sponsors. So sponsors throwing loads of money at those teams, the clubs, the shirts, around the ground and all the rest of it. Their investments are damaged, and that's a negative impact. That you need to be aware of, because the reputation of the league is massively and negatively impacted.
Lazio, Fiorentina and Juventus were all initially demoted to Serie B with varying degrees of point deductions for each club. The case underwent a lengthy set of appeals. Ultimately, it was Juventus that incurred that Bergamo created a system to alter the outcome of matches, and other teams, such as Lazio and Fiorentina, used that system too. On the other hand, Milan tried to create an alternative system with Collina and some linesmen. According to the investigations, Moggi had made phone calls to the referees using Swiss SIM cards to avoid wiretaps from the police. The combination of those two things was enough to punish Juventus, handing down the severest punishment. The old lady was demoted to Serie B, stripped of league titles from 04-05 and 05-06, the latter of which was given to Inter Milan, and deducted 9 points after appealing an initial deduction of 30 points. Of the other clubs, Milan were deducted 8 points for the upcoming season, 30 points for the previous campaign, and forced to play one game behind closed doors. Reggiana.
Okay, so rather than go into all the teams, you can see as a consequence of this corruption, because it might ask this question, there's economic damage in terms of less sponsorship will go into, say, Juventus. There's going to be a lot of talent. It's the inverted version of commercialisation in a sense, because a lot of the top talent pulls away from that league and goes to European clubs instead. And I'm just going to move it forward to because it explains some of the more particular sanctions on the club. Now, the loss
Juve's
of talent.
Demotion sparked an exodus of players,
That's
including
players
Lilian
leave.
Thuram, Zlatan Ibrahimovic, Patrick Vieira, and World Cup winning defender Fabio Cannavaro. Some players did stay, including Pavel Nedved, Gianluigi Buffon, David Trezeguet, and Alessandro Del Piero. Juventus initially announced their intention to appeal through the Italian administrative courts, but later dropped their appeal the day before it was to be heard. The club did this because the court that was due to judge them had already rejected the appeals of other clubs just days before, and as such Juve believed it was a lost cause. The Juventus board resigned in mid-May, followed shortly by Moggi. The once bespectacled mastermind of Juventus was later banned from football for life. Speaking on the matter, he said, "I don't have either the strength nor the willingness to answer any question. I miss my soul. It has been killed. Tomorrow I'll be resigning, since tonight the football world isn't mine anymore. I'll think only to defend myself from all allegations and wicked actions." On the 9th of September 2015, the Supreme Court released a 150-page document explaining the final ruling of the case. Moggi's remaining charges were cancelled without a new trial due to the statute of limitations, but the court made clear that his unwarranted activities incurred significant damage to Italian football, not only in sporting but also in economic terms. The court confirmed that Moggi was actively involved in the sporting fraud, which was intended to favour Juventus and increase his own personal benefits. The document also stated that Moggi had unjustified and excessive power within Italian football, which he used to exert influence over referees, other club officials and media, thereby creating an illegal system to condition matches of the 04-05 championship, and not just those.
Okay then, so we take it back to this, and a quick summary, that was match fixing and fraud. So another type of example. So today I've covered the definition, along with the voting systems involving kickbacks, match fixing, and the Italian example. There are others in Turkey that you can research on YouTube. Cheating examples, along with financial rules and associated financial fair play. All right, I hope that helps, and thanks for listening to it today.